Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Northern Kentucky Spotlight podcast, powered by C-Crew, Google and Amazon advertising experts. I'm your host, Sarah Brookbank. Today on the podcast, we are joined by Omar Ayash of World Trade Center, Kentucky. He discusses the benefits of getting involved with them and their training, education, and consulting services. We are also joined by Nicole Walter of Walter814. She discusses the ins and outs of digital marketing. If you are looking to get more involved in your community, you should join us on Thursday, April 10th, as NKYP hosts Lunchtime Leader Chat Civic Connections. Join us to hear from local experts and discover how decisions are made, how local and state governments collaborate, and why civic engagement is crucial for young professionals in the Northern Kentucky region. You can register at nkychamber.com/events. Now, let's go meet our members of the week, hear from our sponsors, and I'll be back with this week's guests.
Ranking on Google Search and Maps is easy to understand, but hard to do. It requires constant effort and attention, uploading new photos, responding to Google reviews, writing weekly posts, and checking suggested updates. Google listing optimization takes experience and time, and there are no shortcuts. C-Crew gives your Google My Business account the steady, consistent attention it needs to be effective, optimizing, updating, and expanding critical content every single week. From local retail stores to large regional networks, C-Crew generates content, establishes benchmarks, and creates dramatic, measurable increases in engagement. So what can C-Crew do for your business? More calls, more clicks, more clients.
Congratulations to our members of the week. You can learn more about these businesses by following the Northern Kentucky Chamber on social media, where we will highlight one of these businesses each day. Now, let's meet our members of the week. Interlink is focused on providing exceptional support and solutions around Microsoft-based technologies, artificial intelligence readiness and deployment, and more. KPMG is the U.S. firm of the KPMG Global Organization of Independent Professional Services Firms, providing audit, tax, and advisory services. Named after Civil War hero Horatio Governor Wright, and situated on a hillside in northern Kentucky with scenic views of Cincinnati, Fort Wright has access to urban amenities while retaining suburban charm and warmth. AC Hotel Cincinnati at the Banks offers a stylish and modern stay in the heart of downtown, next to a great American ballpark and Paycor Stadium. The Delish Dish is a certified, award-winning woman-owned catering company located in Covington. Hi, everyone. Today I am joined by Omar Ayash, President and CEO of World Trade Center, Kentucky. Omar, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Hey, Sarah, thanks for having me.
It is great to have you, and you are based down in Lexington, but you are working across the state and internationally at World Trade Center, Kentucky. Give us a brief overview of what you guys are doing.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. You know, the World Trade Center has been around for some time here in Kentucky. We got started in the late 80s, and we are here to promote international trade. We grow trade. We work with small, medium, and large companies across the state and the surrounding region to help them facilitate their international business. We do it both when it comes to exporting as well as importing.
Yeah, and that is a very hot topic right now. I know it's not like international trade is ever not a hot topic, but I know that's been something really bubbling up for a lot of our businesses locally. When you think about those hot topics, what kind of things are you guys hearing? What kind of things are important for local businesses to know?
Yeah, well, you know, trade policy, like you said, Sarah, has always been very much at the forefront of how, you know, countries manage their resources, negotiate their political opportunities and what have you. Definitely, you know, when it comes to the relationship with China, you know, the first Trump administration instituted a tariff on Chinese goods being imported to the United States. The Biden administration continued it, and now we're seeing that there's happening, and it's not just happening within China, with Canada, Mexico, and a few other countries and what have you. So one of the things that we at the World Trade Center do is companies call us and they say, hey, we're sourcing out of China, but maybe sometimes we're looking for alternative sourcing options out of, let's say, India, Vietnam, other countries, or even French shoring to Mexico and things of that nature. And we help them with that process, whether it is one particular product that they're looking to get. We'll figure out a way to get them to understand that. And then we look through the entire process of from A to Z on how to make sure that they move from their existing supplier to a new supplier and make sure that their product arrives right here in Kentucky.
Yes, that is an essential resource for people and businesses here in the state. So, in addition to doing import and export services and those advisory services, you mentioned you provide a lot of education for people that are looking to learn. So, tell us a little bit about the types of education that you provide and some of the events you guys have coming up for that.
Wonderful. So before I go into that, I'd like to also add that we're part of the World Trade Center Association, which has 330 World Trade Centers in about 101 countries. And usually, most of the World Trade Centers are actually city-based. We're fortunate that we're one of the few, probably the only World Trade Center that is actually state-based. And I give the founders of the organization the foresight to have created that back in the late '80s. But generally speaking, the World Trade Center is, to put it simply, we're your chamber of commerce for international trade. And we do it through three ways. We do it through trade advisory services, we do it through training and events, and we do it through trade missions, both inbound to Kentucky and outbound. And we're a membership organization, so companies typically join the World Trade Center and they focus on one of these areas. Either they call us for a trade advisory service or they attend one of our trainings and things of that nature. We do a lot of training, and some of the things have to do with cultural competency and global commerce. We're very actually involved with many of the universities in that level in the MBA program, where we create some of those activities. We also host our Global Executive Forum, which is a premier event where we bring in C-level executives to talk about their international business. Last year, we had the CEO of Lexmark, we had the CEO of Valvoline Global Products, we had the CEO of Alltech all in one room talking about their experience on an international level. We've hosted events related to the ASEAN business community, where we had 8 ambassadors from the ASEAN countries come to the Muhammad Ali Center, and we did an event with that. We also hosted an event related to the China business community and how businesses here in the state can navigate some of the changes that are happening with that. I'll be remiss if I don't mention our International Trade Certification Program, which is the premier training program that companies in the state of Kentucky literally call us. Hey, when is your next international trade certification program? Because it is an onboarding program for their international department. And it's a 3-day program in person. First day is on market access. Second day is on logistics. Third day is on payment and legal. And then after they take the class, we actually give them a test. And then once they pass the test, the World Trade Center certifies the attendees as international trade practitioners, international trade specialists. And we've had more than 550 people throughout the years attend our class. It's something that we're very proud of. In the last couple of years, we've been very lucky to partner with Valvoline Global Products in Lexington at their headquarters. That's where we host our international trade certification. And then there's every once in a while we do a duty drawback seminar or an import compliance seminar or an export compliance seminar, just depending on the needs of what the market has to offer.
Yeah, that's a lot of different avenues to learn more and get involved in this. You mentioned these trade missions. What is that?
All right. So the World Trade Center has been involved with trade missions for a number of years. Actually, my first one, this is my second stint working for the World Trade Center, by the way. I worked for the full World Trade Center in the late 90s. And in 1997, when Hong Kong was returned to China, that was one of the, that was my first experience on a trade mission that the World Trade Center hosted. But since I've become the president and CEO of the World Trade Center, we had a quiet moment where we didn't have trade missions. And the reason behind that was COVID and what have you, but then we had to restart them. And Sarah, I had spent 12 and a half years living in Dubai. And so I've decided that from now on, every year we go to Dubai for a trade mission. And we went to Dubai to GITEX, which is the largest technology trade show. We've done it twice. It's hosted every year in October, and we're getting ready to do it again this coming October 2025. The reason we go to GITEX is because it is literally 180 different countries that are focused on technology. And I look at technology as being something that's part of every business. So it doesn't matter if you're in the automotive business or if you're in the pharmaceutical business or the agriculture business. That's a trade show where you can really expand your relations and export assistance and things of that nature. It's been very well received. So that's the trade mission on the outbound side. But we also do a lot of trade missions on the inbound side. And technically, we receive delegations into the state of Kentucky that are looking to develop relationships. Like I said, we've hosted before 8 ambassadors here. We've hosted the Quebec government office several times. I think they're coming back in May because of actually the exciting news that we're going to have a flight out of CVG to Montreal. And so we're going to kick that off with that relationship. We host the Canadian Consul General regularly out of Detroit. You know, he comes down to visit us. Last August, we hosted a lunch in Lexington. And, you know, there's constantly activities where we have to showcase how great our state is. And if you don't mind, I'm going to talk a little bit about the statistics here. You know, in 2022, the state of Kentucky exported $32 billion in exports. In 2023, we exported $40 billion in exports. That was a 25% increase. And, you know, we're very fortunate to have that happening out of the state of Kentucky. We've got great partners that work with the World Trade Center in making that happen. It's through the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development, through the U.S. Department of Commerce with their office in Louisville and Lexington, through, of course, the chambers like the Northern Kentucky Chamber of Commerce and Commerce Lexington and Greater Louisville Inc. and the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. And we're very proud of that. But also, if I don't, I would like to mention also, you know, UPS being headquartered, their international hub at the Louisville airport is very much a reason for that. And in Northern Kentucky, DHL, I believe, has their, not I believe, I know, has their international hub. And that really creates a level of excitement. You know, Sarah, we're a 7-hour drive from 2/3 of the U.S. population. Mm-hmm. We're truly a hub in every way. And that's why we've had record economic development in our state in the last 30 years or so.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It is a lot of people, I think, underestimate Kentucky's punching power when it comes to economics, not just in the country, but obviously internationally. And you are really keyed into that. And it sounds like you guys have so many great resources for any business in Kentucky, especially if they're doing international work. So for people who are interested in learning more and learning how to get a membership, how can people get in touch with you? What's the easiest way to learn more?
Yeah, you know, the essence of why we exist is, I like to say we're an aggregator. You know, anyone that's thinking about international business or they're doing international business, they need to call the World Trade Center, and we're here to help. And the easiest way is through connecting through our website, www.wtcky.org. You know, just the World Trade Center Kentucky.org. That's the easiest way to connect. And you can find out about our upcoming events. You can find out about membership and things of that nature. You can send us an email if you have a particular request. But also, in the last few years, we decided to launch a podcast.
Yes.
And it's called This Global Trade Adventure. And we've released 20 episodes. And the main reason we did that is, you know, if we go back in time, prior to the internet, an organization like the World Trade Center had currency on information. You know, people used to come to us because we literally can go get you a wonderful market report or insight about a particular product in a different country or things of that nature. Well, now we all have access to that information. Just with a click of a button, you can get access to that information. But I thought that the reason we needed to put a podcast together is to tell real stories of international trade, to tell how executives in the state of Kentucky, whether it is CEOs, government officials, academicians, people that are immersed in international trade. They can share their story, and it's like a crash course, if you will, in international trade. Whenever, I'm fortunate. I teach at both universities, UK and U of L. And many times I tell my students, just listen to the podcast. The podcast is literally a course. It's called This Global Trade Adventure.
Yeah, it's like required reading on your syllabus. They say, just listen to the podcast. That's your assignment. I absolutely love that.
It's an easy A if you, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah, we will let your students know. But Omar, it has been so great to talk with you about World Trade Center of Kentucky. And you guys are doing such great work and working with so many businesses across the state. Before I let you go, is there anything else that you think businesses need to know now about the state of international commerce or about your organization in general?
Well, the things are changing by the day, by the minute. And the reality of it is what's happening with tariffs. Not only does it affect business and businesses to be agile to figure out a way to navigate these changes. Just like I said earlier, you might actually need to shift your supply chain. Might shift your source point. But at the same time, for the common, for the not the non-business people that are listening to this podcast, tariffs affects us all in our pockets. Whenever there's an increase in tariffs, there's an increase at the grocery store. If we were to take a magic wand and literally have everything imported into this country disappear, we would have very little. The tires on your car would be not there. The mattress that you sleep on might not be there. So there's that opportunity for you to be vigilant, to understand these changes, and not to worry. The World Trade Center is here to help you navigate these challenges. And if we don't have the answer, we know where to get you the answer.
Yes. And you guys are such a great resource. Omar, thank you so much for your time today. I've really appreciated talking with you, and I hope our businesses reach out if they need anything when they're dealing internationally.
Thank you. We really appreciate this and look forward to our continued partnership and relationship.
Hi, everyone. Today on the podcast, I am joined by Nicole Walter, owner and founder of Walter814. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, I'm excited to talk about Walter814. You guys are a digital marketing agency. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I designed Walter814 to work with our clients differently. So ultimately, I want to work with business owners and decision makers. I usually say at small to medium-sized businesses, but that's because that's the business owners I want to reach most. We've definitely worked with large businesses in the Cincinnati area quite frequently, just because we do offer so much value. But realistically, I've been in the agency world both on the analytics side and on the digital ads side my entire career. And I felt like having both backgrounds really allowed me to see through a lot of Google ads and how it could be better attributed to small business. Google has the full power for small businesses to do big things. And really they are organizing that platform in a very ethical way. It's just that a lot of big agencies don't honor that or feel like they can't honor that. And I thought, well, here's my chance. I could structure things from the base up to, return investment for business owners at a price that actually makes sense for them. So I find that we're definitely below the price of what you would see at a big agency like in downtown Cincinnati, but we get probably more value from most of our clients, if not all of our clients, because we do bring that analytics mindset in and really focus on return and the bare bones of how much you're putting in and how much you're getting out of your marketing.
Yeah, and marketing, there's so many different pieces that go into marketing and marketing your business, especially for those small and medium businesses. Sometimes it feels a little intimidating to get your foot in the door when there are so many options. And I know one of the things that you really value is transparency. From your background working, you said, I want to start this business. I want to be transparent with my clients.
Yeah, one of the biggest things I struggled with before I started Walter814 when I ran ads accounts was I always felt like I was more held to honor the contract that the client signed and not their actual business. And in a lot of ways, I was told that basically point blank. And I really didn't like that. It was unethical to me. I actually got to the point where I had trouble sleeping at night. So I thought, for my health, for other companies in the Northern Kentucky area, I want to do things differently. And I really had to start Walter814 in order to be able to do that. And a lot of it goes back to transparency. So I call it our golden handcuffs. So my teams that run our accounts for me now that we've grown a little bit, I have teams. Now that we have that, they know that if they don't honor the client, they can leave next month. We don't do long-term contracts. So you have to deliver when you put that up front. And with the added transparency, they can go consult any other marketing professional, whether it be in their company or out of their company. We've definitely worked with outside consultants that companies that hire us also hire. And it's been a great relationship for them and for us, really. We've gained information both ways. But we all know inside Walter814 that our clients own that account. We simply have the access to manage it. So we can't, misconstrue anything to them. They're going to be able to open that if they want to and see what's going on, which is a big deal. I think a lot of people forget that digital ads and really internet marketing as a whole isn't that old. Right. I mean, if you ask people what would an expert in a field be, they're going to say probably 20 years. It's not that old. There's no experts in this field if you're going to put that level on it. So I personally have 10 to 12 years in the business, and it's changed so dramatically in that 12 years that at any point I could have been not an expert anymore if I wouldn't have kept up on it.
Yeah.
And I think if you have a contract that lasts that long, or you keep re-upping a contract, then it's probably
learn. And one of the things you mentioned, your clients can get into their accounts. They own those accounts. Talk about the importance of account ownership and like owning your things when you're working with an agency.
Definitely. So I always tell people that I talk to, I try to spread as much education about this topic as possible. I'm not a good salesperson, so I actually don't have a very good sales pitch for people, but I just try to educate, and it tends to work out sometimes. I say those are business assets, just the way that you wouldn't want your CPA to be the only person to look at your bookkeeping. And you wouldn't want, anything else hidden. You wouldn't want your order forms to just be, pay this at the end, and you have no clue what you actually ordered, right? Digital marketing is the same way. If you don't know exactly where that spend is, and somebody can't tell you exactly where all that spend is going, or they're unwilling to tell you that, there's an issue. That should be your account. It's tied to your business. And I've seen this time and time again with websites. So while Walter814 will definitely facilitate you if you need a website, I personally do not make those. I have contractors and people I like to refer to for that. So if you don't have access to your domain and it's hosting and ownership, someone can actually use that against you, which I've seen before at all different levels of agencies and different types of agencies. If they hold the domain and then you choose not to buy ad service from them anymore, they could say, well, good luck, I now own your website. Yeah. And it leaves a business owner in a really bad spot, because not only is it costly to replace a website, but you have probably built up a brand awareness, especially if you have Google reviews that you now don't have access to, you're going to lose so much. So these really need to be seen as business assets for business owners that they need to have ownership for. I usually try to go the next level and say have a general business email that actually owns those. So if you ever want to sell your business, it can be packaged with that. Or if you have interns or employees coming and going every now and then, it's not tied to that one person's individual email. I've seen that as well, where it's now hard to get back into the Facebook suite. Yeah. If one person that worked for you 5 years ago set it up and we don't know that password, that could be really hard to get back. So all of these digital accounts, and it's very overwhelming, I think, for business owners, because you're busy running your day-to-day, or you're busy managing your teams, and now you have to manage this. But it really does take keeping on top of it, or at least keeping a record of it, and knowing how to access all that. And if at any point in this journey an agency comes to you and says, oh, don't worry, I'll create that, I'll manage that, you won't have to do anything, you need to make sure, and who has ownership of that.
So are there other things that business owners can do to protect those business assets, those digital ones?
For the most part, it's making sure that you have the permissions set up correctly. That's why I usually suggest a more general business-owned email to own all those. And then secondarily, if somebody is going to run it for you, it's making sure that all of those channels are set up correctly. So Meta can be the worst.
Yeah, they talk about changes. Talk about changes.
But once you have all that figured out, you know that you own it all. You need to make sure you're giving people access in the right way. So especially in Meta, there's a partners tab. You can assign people certain jobs and not other jobs, or certain abilities and not other abilities. And my agency, Walter814, always asks for manager access. If you're giving one person that might have made your website, or one person that has sold you an out-of-the-box thing for ads, like personal direct access to like their Gmail, that's going to be far less secure than running it through a manager account. Mm-hmm. And that really does go back to even a lot of the large agencies, for their own purposes, have set up their ownership of the accounts. And it truly is their ownership of your ads account, because they've created it inside their platform. So once you have access and ownership of your account, we can request access through our what's called an MCC, and that shows us as a manager. So all the accounts that I can see when I log in are all of my clients. I don't own any of those. Yeah. I just have manager access to those. And that actually separates their algorithms in the platform, which is really, really important. When big agencies set them up as they own them, there's actually a back-end algorithm that I've sat with teams with Google in Ontario and Silicon Valley. And there's a lot that they'll shroud and not say outright because it's a big company. But there is a part of that algorithm that tries to connect businesses that are owned by one person. Mm-hmm. So it kind of muddies the water if you own multiple accounts and they're not kept separate. Now, if you're a business owner that owns multiple businesses and they're completely unrelated, so you have a dry cleaner and a restaurant and then a business consulting service, something I've actually seen before, there's proper ways to separate those and own those. But I, as an agency, need to make sure that I'm keeping manager access and not ownership access, so it doesn't muddy everybody's algorithms.
Right. Got to keep them separated. But there's so much that goes into digital marketing, and there's so many different things that you can do in digital marketing. And it can be expensive, but it's not prohibitive for a lot of businesses. Obviously, it's accessible for small and mid-sized businesses. So when you talk about the cost of digital marketing, what do you think businesses, like small to medium-sized businesses, need to know?
Yeah, so I've always said that I can work with any cost. Google wants to work with any cost. That's starting to change upcoming this year, just a little bit. So for the first time ever, Google has told me on my strategy meetings with them that search only is, they're going to start asking. It's not a true minimum. You could put in less, but they've just now started asking for $20 a day on Google search. There's so much competition there for just about every industry that prices are going up everywhere. But even if you don't have $20 a day to spend, you should be able to make a good campaign. And somebody should be able to strategize with that. So I have a few clients that are going to be less than that. I've passed on the information. I said, this is what Google has told me. But if you want to find a strategy that works for you at less than that cost, then that's fine. And really, your geographic region kind of decides that cost. So if somebody comes to me and says, I want to hit all of the state of Ohio or all of the state of Kentucky or both, and I only want to spend $500 a month, I'm going to say, that's a big area for $500. But if that's where you need to be, then why don't we talk about just hitting the 275 loop, or just a few counties that are really, really interesting to you.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about like 2 to 3 easy tips for businesses when they're trying to make this digital marketing fit their budget, what do you think are the top things that businesses need to know?
That there really is no minimum spend. Usually, if you're buying a package at a set price, there's quite a bit of margin built into that. So part of our transparency approach at Walter814 is that we have that discussion. You know exactly how much is spent on your ad placements versus our management fee. So we do a flat rate fee in order to separate that out. If you're going to be running your own ads and picking that, it's really more about picking a geographic region and then learning enough about those parts of the ads account. They give you quite a lot of information, especially on Google, to see. There's pretty clear indicator right in Google where it'll say limited by budget and it'll flash red. It's very scary. And then they're going to ask you to probably double your budget or quadruple your budget. That doesn't always make sense. I say that would be to buy every single available placement that you could show up for. A lot of times that doesn't fit your strategy, right? So you don't need to buy every single available placement that you could possibly show up for. That's not strategic advance unless you have the pockets big enough to do that. So really what you need to do is look at quality of placement. And there's quite a few ways to do that in the account, mostly looking at the placements. And for search, that would be the search term versus the keyword. So you tell Google a list of keywords that you would like to show up for. But we have to remember we're working with computers, and computers are not people. And they can get some things really correct and some things really not correct. So if you go in and look at the search terms on a search account, you can see what the viewer actually typed in. Mm-hmm. And then that's one of the bigger parts of our strategy for quality that my teams do every single day is that they go in, they read every single search term, and they assess it with a human brain and human knowledge of current events and what else is going on. Does that make sense? Is that actually going to work for this strategy? Is this business owner actually going to get a sale off of this or get what they asked us to get them off of this? And if not, we have the knowledge to know what to do about that. So you can assign a negative keyword that says, I don't want to show up for things with this word included, or you can play with the actual keyword that you put in. Like, obviously, this isn't quite honed in enough. Maybe we need to add a word or remove a word or change a word. Most keywords nowadays actually need to be 3 words long.
Right. A key phrase.
Yeah. As a business owner, you really don't have time to look at all those things and learn all of those things on how to manage that. If you have the ability to hire somebody that could learn all that, that's amazing. But otherwise, there are agencies like us out there that could do that.
Yeah. And working with an agency really takes a lot of stress and gives expertise to that, especially digital marketing, where it sounds like there are a lot of different pieces that I'm not even aware of. So, Nicole, for businesses that want to get in touch with you and learn more about your business, how can people get in touch?
Yeah, so we do have an online form on our website, Walter814.com. They could always reach out to me. We're part of the Northern Kentucky Chamber, so you can definitely find us in the directory there. Or you could, I always am available. So at least for those discussions. It might take me a day or two to get back with you. But if you find my information on the directory, that's actually my cell phone and my email. So you'll be emailing me directly. And then talk about getting you a strategy set up and getting the appropriate teams assigned for your needs.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's good. And then, Nicole, before I let you go, and it's been a pleasure to talk with you, is there anything else that you think businesses need to know about you, about Walter814, or about digital marketing in general?
Yeah, I always try to educate business owners that whatever question you have, it's not too much. So I think a lot of agencies or a lot of people try to keep our industry shrouded with, oh, well, you wouldn't understand that, or, oh, I can't give you that information. There's very little information that I can't give you. And if they're not willing to give it to you, I would ask why. Mm-hmm. So as a business owner, you shouldn't be afraid to ask questions. You shouldn't be afraid to say, where did my money go? I want to know to the cent how much I spent on this one thing or this one location. It's not too hard. A lot of times people in my industry will act like it's too hard. And it's not asking too much to own it. It might take a back and forth email to say, okay, in order to set that up, we're going to need to do this. Or in my case, you get an invoice from Walter814 and then you pay Google Ads directly, but that keeps that intact. So there might be a slight cost to doing that. You might have to pay 2 separate invoices, or you might have to do an email back and forth to get everything set up the first time. But it's definitely doable, and you should know exactly where your money's going and how much you're getting for that. Yeah,
very valuable knowledge base for our friends out there running their own businesses. But Nicole, thank you so much for your time today. It was great to have you on.
It was great being here. Thank you.
Chris Knockelman with Schneller Knockelman Plumbing, Heating, and Air. It's spring now, but before you know it, our ACs are working overtime.
Dave, it's going to be warm soon.
Right now is a good time to get the AC serviced, right?
You can get your AC tuned up for only $59.
So get your $59 tune-up at
SKPHA.com. SKPHA. So if your plumbing and mechanical systems give you trouble, just remember our name. Schneller Knockelman.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the podcast as we learned a little bit more about World Trade Center Kentucky and Walter814. Don't forget to register for Lunchtime Leader Chat Civic Connections on Thursday, April 10th. Like I said, you can register at nkychamber.com/events. And thank you once again to our podcast sponsors, C-Crew, Google and Amazon advertising experts, and Schneller Knockelman. Finally, if you're a member who would like to be featured on the podcast, or if you're someone who is interested in joining the Northern Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, please reach out to Lynn Aitlin. And if you're a member who would like to share your workforce strategies and resources on our Talent Strategies Spotlight, please reach out to Nancy Spivey. You can find their contact information on the screen in front of you or in our staff directory at nkychamber.com. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys next week.